Stay with us as we move west to the Iberian Peninsula for our next story. And tens of thousands of people are protesting in Lisbon against the centre-right government's plan to overhaul labour laws, which unions say will undermine workers' rights, and to demand higher wages. The CGTP, which is Portugal's biggest union, called the protest, accusing the government of favouring big business while low-paid workers struggle with rising living costs. The union says that around 100,000 demonstrators occupied the capital's main avenue, although no police estimate for the crowd size is yet available. This comes as Prime Minister Luis Montenegro's government approved a draft bill to amend the labour code in September, saying that it aims to boost competitiveness. Now, Ross, of course, there's serious public anger over this, seemingly, in the Portuguese capital, with Montenegro's government facing mass protests over these planned labour laws changes. What's driving this level of public anger?
Well, who wants to work longer or for less pension money than previous generations received? Look, after the Second World War, the countries of Western Europe built very elaborate social safety nets, whether that's medical care, education, early retirement compared to other places around the world. And people have enjoyed the benefits of that for decades. But it's simply not sustainable, and we've seen that in the larger economies of Europe, France and the United Kingdom, for example. Those social safety nets that were constructed and cost a lot of money and often came with higher taxes than other parts of the world. It's simply not sustainable, especially with other demands, whether that was over the past 10 years with the refugee crisis and a lot of public money that was diverted to that, and now there's a backlash in some places, or defense spending. And European countries are under tremendous pressure from President Trump to increase defense spending. So the level of spending that went for things like pensions and medical care and education, it's no longer available. And governments realize that. The problem is every time a government in Europe tries to make those changes, people take to the streets. And we've seen that numerous times throughout Europe.
And of course, post-pandemic, Europe is a continent with many economic issues. Are we seeing a broader trend of backlash against austerity-style labour policies here, Ross, in the continent?
Well, again, this kind of bubbles up and dissipates, and then it bubbles up again. It really depends on the government of the day and whether or not they try to prioritize this issue or they want to leave it for the future. And it's very possible they'll lose power, and the center-right government will lose power, and a center-left government will take power, saying that we're not going to make these changes. But then eventually they'll be confronted with the same budget and spending realities that the current government is trying to deal with, because the past level of spending and borrowing is simply not sustainable, especially with growth relatively flat. The governments are just not bringing in the amount of revenue that could satisfy all the commitments that have been made in the past for this kind of social spending. So whether they take action now or they take action in the future under a future government, eventually not just Portugal but other countries in Europe are going to have to make these changes because their level of social spending is simply not sustainable.
Yes, Ross Feingold, thank you very much for your insight on that. Pleasure to have you on the programme as always. We now move on and stay in the region, and 3 people have died and 15 others were injured as powerful waves struck the Spanish island of Tenerife. Emergency services confirmed that a man died after being swept into the water at the La Gancha beach in the north of the island. He was airlifted by rescue teams but was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. In a separate incident, another man was found floating at the El Cabezo beach in the south and could not be revived by lifeguards. A third victim was a woman who died of a heart attack after a massive wave swept 10 people into the sea at the Puerto de la Cruz beach. 3 others from this group still remain hospitalized with serious injuries. and officials have placed the Canary Islands on high alert for coastal hazards as strong winds and high tides continue to batter the region. Authorities urged residents and tourists to avoid beach areas and follow safety warnings. Well, that's a wrap on